What's up, guys? It's Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Miller if you like. So let's get into it. I just want to say it always feels good to come talk to you guys after a regular season Cowboys win, one that actually means something. It feels nice to see the way they played today. They exceeded some of my expectations in certain areas, so that was nice to see. So let's take a look at some of the predictions and things we talked about going into the game that might have actually come true. So one thing I want to say, I'm very proud to be right about. I said the Cowboys would average 4 yards a carry or more. They actually averaged 4.1 yards a carry. They ran the ball 25 times, exactly the number that I hit on for 102 yards. So their running game was not really a detriment. They were persistent with it. They made sure to run it at least at a decent efficiency. And one of the things I was wrong about that I'd like to also bring up is that Ezekiel Elliott looked a little bit better than I expected. Now, I was wrong about that. One of the things I did say, though, is that if you are going to get a good Ezekiel Elliott, it's going to come early in the season because that's when he's going to be the freshest. So we did. We got a good Zeke. We got him early in the season. He actually helped Guyton on some plays. There was a specific pass rush in the game I remember where, actually a couple times, where Garrett was rushing against Guyton and Zeke kind of lined up almost like in a slot, like he was going to be a slot receiver, but instead he went and chipped. There was one where he gave Myles Garrett a nice hard chip, and then Guyton also, was there in pass protection as well, and Dak Prescott was able to get the ball off. Just seeing that from him throughout the course of the night was awesome. We'll need that from him again next week when playing the Saints, and the week after that when playing the Baltimore Ravens. Not necessarily maybe as much against the Giants because hopefully by then Guyton has gotten a little bit of a feel for things. And even though we'll need to help, right? Thibodeau's a good pass rusher, and then they went out and got Burns as well. So you still want to help against those guys, but maybe not necessarily as much. But I felt like he was really good in pass protection today and was decent in the running game. He actually averaged 4 yards a carry, but the carries were actually distributed all over the place. Another thing that I'd like to pat myself on the back for is CeeDee Lamb. Even though he didn't get a touchdown, today, which I was kind of bummed, but I said about 6 catches for 93 yards and a touchdown. Instead, he had about 8 touches total for about 86 yards and not a touchdown. So still, right around what I expected him to get. He touched the ball a few times in a running game. He actually had a couple of nice runs where he got some first downs and he was able to make some people miss in open field. So even though he is not in midseason form right now, there are also a couple of drops, a couple of passes that hit his hands, but he was also getting hit going over the middle. So a couple of those plays were tough. He actually did have some nice production today on offense. Another one I'd like to give a shout out to is Brandon Cooks. That touchdown catch was a thing of beauty. That route he ran was nice. He got open on the back end, and Dak made a very nice throw, just kind of leaving it out there enough for his receiver to run up under it because he saw that he was open. The blitz came. The offensive line didn't really pick it up that well. There was a free runner to Dak, and instead of Dak trying to necessarily, a lot of times when Dak makes the wrong decision, he tries to rifle it in there, right? But this time he kind of floated it up and gave Brandon Cooks a chance to run up under it. There was nobody there. So it was either going to be Brandon Cooks making the catch or Brandon Cooks dropping the ball. But luckily, Brandon Cooks made the catch. It was a perfect pass by Dak. It looked pretty awesome. One of the things I talked about before the game was seeing how Dak played. I feel like this is the winning version of Dak. Now, it wasn't perfect, right? He missed some throws. The receivers dropped some catches. I definitely saw a little bit of that today, but that'll come with the season's timing. So as the weeks go on, some of those plays will connect. Whether it's Dak not getting preseason game reps, whether it's CeeDee Lamb being a holdout, whether it's, Brandon Cooks not getting game reps that much. Tolbert got game reps, but he had a little bit of he had a drop today. So, but he had some nice blocks, but he also had a penalty. So kind of up and down for that guy. But it'll be nice to see as the season goes along and they're practicing more and more and they're getting those game reps together. I think some of the sloppy plays we saw today will start to come together. But all in all, I thought it was actually a winning day for Dak. Obviously, we won the game. But I thought he made the right winning plays. He didn't turn the ball over when the times got crucial. If there wasn't a window to throw the ball, he didn't make a bad throw to put us in a bad situation. He did have the fumble. We were able to recover that. He didn't lose that fumble. But for the most part, he played winning football. And that's kind of what you got to see in games like this. Like, games like this are kind of how the games are going to be in the playoffs. And at the end of the day, you're going to see the stat line and you're going to see, oh, man, he didn't have, 300 passing yards. He didn't have 3 touchdowns. He played a bad game. No, that's not what it's necessarily all about. It's more so about controlling the offense, moving the change, staying ahead of down and distance, and then not putting your team in negative situations. We got put in a lot of negative situations today by penalties, but it wasn't necessarily penalties caused by Dak Prescott. So I thought all in all, he had an okay game. He had an above average game. Now, as the season goes on, I'll leave that up to other people to decide whether he's having a $60 million season. But all in all, I thought today was the way you play when you're trying to win football games. And honestly, if the Cowboys win, the majority of their games this year, especially if they're games against a tough team and a tough defense like that, and Dak doesn't necessarily have the stats during those games, I don't care. I want the Cowboys to win. If we get to the playoffs and we have to win a game like that, that's what I want to see. That's the way I want the team to play when the time is clutch and when it matters most. Also, looking at Cooper Beebe today, he played actually very, very well from what I first saw. Now, once I get to look at the film a little bit more tomorrow, I'll get to see where he had some breakdowns. But even the sack by Dalvin Tomlinson early in the game, that wasn't Cooper Beebe at all. That was actually our, all-pro over there, Zach Martin, holding the block but then getting beat at the last second and getting Dak just destroyed. So that wasn't necessarily on Cooper Beebe. Cooper Beebe actually held his own today. All his snaps were good. It looked like he picked up on the protections that Dak set pretty well. He set his own protections pretty well. He was a mover in the run game. I think that's part of the reason why the Cowboys ran the ball well. Those 3 guys inside were doing pretty good. Also, Tyler Guyton, another rookie, saw him look pretty good today. I know he gave up the 1 sack against Myles Garrett, but for the most part, I also saw him give up a couple of pressures. Myles Garrett was getting him with that rip move, kind of like when you get your hands on a defensive end, and a defensive end takes that inside shoulder, and he rips it against your outside hand as a tackle, and then he kind of carries you around the edge and bends and uses the other hand to try to swat at the ball at a quarterback or to swat at the arm and make sure the pass is wobbly, try to get your defense some turnovers. So he did do that a couple of times, but I thought all in all, for your first game as Tyler Guyton in the NFL, and that's who you have to go against, I thought he played pretty well. He also showed some good plays in run blocking as well. Like I said, we'll get into the film tomorrow a little bit better. Offensive line play is very up and down, very finicky. Once you get into the film, you get to break down the few plays that they actually had that were bad and the majority of plays that they had that were good, and get to see where some of the vision was off and things like that. But for the most part, thought Tyler Guyton played a really good game. Now switching to the defensive side, I saw those linebackers flying all over the place. Demarion Overshown was making plays. Kendricks was making plays. And even Damone Clark actually made a couple of plays. But I will say, to me, that means for everybody out there who wants to throw dirt on the player, to me that means Mozzie Smith was doing his job. Mozzie Smith looked okay today. I'm not saying he looked like an all-pro, one technique, but he looked okay today. He did his job. He commanded double teams. He created that part of the defense where you want to draw players to yourself so that other players can be free to make plays. And I saw that today from Mozzie Smith. So for everybody who wonders, hey, can Mozzie Smith do his job? A day like today with a team that normally likes to commit to the run, I don't have off the top of my head how many rushes, Cleveland had, but they are normally a commit to the run team, and Mozzie Smith held up pretty well and allowed his linebackers to flow. I mean, Mike Parsons was all over the field making plays. like I said, Kendricks, Overshown. I mean, you watch the game, you see those guys, so you know Mozzie Smith was doing what he needed to do. Also in the secondary, kind of give shout outs to Trayvon Diggs. I didn't know that he would look as well as he did. He had an interception today. He played really well. They played a lot of zone coverage. You know, they got up on the receivers. I thought Amari Cooper would have a much bigger impact. Not necessarily. I believe he ended up with about 2 catches, maybe 13, 14 yards. So he did drop a big play where he could have had a touchdown later in the game, but by then the game was out of hand. So it was nice to see, Trayvon Diggs do well. Also, Kalen Carson as well. He had a penalty in there. But for the most part, he held his own against a route runner like Amari Cooper. He could have easily got, taken to school today. And I bet when I go look at the film, there's probably a couple times where he did get taken to school, but maybe Deshaun Watson was under too much pressure to even get the ball out. But if that happened, Carson's going to be able to learn from that. The safeties played well today. Donovan Wilson was coming downhill. Malik Hooker was good in coverage. I know there was a play where they went deep down the field to Amari Cooper, and both Hooker and Trayvon Diggs were there, and the ball fell incomplete. Just nice to see the safeties playing well. I already complimented the linebackers, so I hope they'll be able to take a little bit deeper of a look at this game, get into see, where we did well, where we didn't do well. But from first glance, very proud of the Cowboys today, very proud of the way they played. And I had the score as 24-16, Cowboys win. It was 33-17, so a little bit farther apart than I thought it would be. Cowboys came out with their hair on fire and got out to a big lead, and then the Cleveland Browns could never really do anything to catch up. These are the type of wins you want to see the Cowboys get. These are what they're best at, getting out to an early lead and letting their pass rush take control, letting their offense play some ball control and keep the ball a little bit. They did all of those things today. All of the metrics that you want to see. They were decent on third down. They weren't necessarily great, but they were decent on third down. They were decent running the football. They were very good with time of possession. And then their defense was great with pass rush, getting their hands on the ball, 1st and 2 turnovers, all the things you like to see. So, we'll take a look tomorrow. I'll join it. I'll come back around to you guys and kind of see where the Cowboys faltered and where they succeeded and kind of where they can improve going into next week's game against the Saints. But that's all I got for now. You can follow me on Twitter, JMiller, IYL. That's J Miller if you like. You can throw me some questions there. You can throw some comments below if you want me to cover a specific thing. You can also hit me up via email. That's knockersonthebottom@outlook.com. Again, knockersonthebottom@outlook.com. I'll take your questions there, Twitter, in the comments below. Put them into a mailbag format. Make it a normal thing. But thank you guys. Love you for tuning in. Again, until next time, I'm your host, J Miller if you like. This has been Knockers on the Bottom. Peace.